Welcome everyone to lecture number 28.8. Okay, so in this lecture we are going to discuss about the article number 19. Till now we have discussed till article 18, and this lecture can be big because there are lots of stuffs within this article 19. Okay, so let me set up my board. So the article 19. Okay, what this article 19 tells, what does it provide? It actually provide total 6 freedom to us. It provides 6 freedom. What are those freedoms? First will be freedom of speech and expression. First will be freedom of speech and expression. Second will be assemble peacefully without arms. Assemble peacefully, that we can form our group, any kind of group. Okay, but it should not be a harmful rebellion kind of groups, not like a Maoist Marxist kind of things. Peacefully and without arms. Okay, now third will be form associations or unions. We can create our own associations and unions. Okay, like labor union within the hospital, also each have an employee union. So all those things are present, and it is allowed as per the constitutions, so that people can raise their voice. Okay, that so people will get a platform to raise their voice. Another will be move freely throughout the territory of India. You are allowed to move freely anywhere within the country. There are restrictions. What are the restrictions? We will see. Okay, move freely throughout the territory of India. And the fifth will be reside and settle in any part of the territory of India. Reside and settle in any part of the India. Yes, here also certain exceptions are there. We'll see. Another will be practice any, where does it go? Practice any profession. Practice any profession or to carry on any occupation, trade or business. Here is also restriction. You can't do such criminal activities kind of job. Okay, so the sixth one will are practice a second, what exactly is happening, man? Practice any profession or to carry on any occupation trade or business. Trade or business. Okay, so these are total 6 freedoms that has been provided to us through the article 19. Okay, through the article 19. So proceeding ahead, we'll discuss more in detail what exactly it is. Okay, so these rights, whatever the rights just now we have discussed, all these rights are provided to Indian citizens. So all the citizens citizens of India enjoys these rights. Okay. Now, protection of certain rights regarding freedom of speech, etc. So there are like certain protection is like you have to like speaking, and you are getting the freedom to speech and expression, but there is exception, like there is some restriction on that. Okay, so all the laws whatever I have explained it here is not absolute. Okay, so now we'll tell you one important thing, that the first is our freedom of speech and expression, second is assemble peacefully without arms, the third will be to form association or unions or cooperative societies also you can add here, or cooperative societies. Okay, yeah, to move freely throughout the territory of India, that is allowed. Second is reside and settle in any part of the territory of India. Now the point that I have told you, that this sixth one is was actually seventh at the time when it was when we had the constitution. After that the sixth number was omitted. Okay, it was omitted. So now we have currently total 6 freedom as per the article 16. So all the fundamental rights are classified as natural right. Okay, whatever the fundamental rights is provided to us, so all the fundamental rights are classified as natural law. Okay, all the law, whatever the law that we have discussed, that will be classified as all over the fundamental rights will be classified as natural rights. These rights are inherent in the state of an individual. Okay, now this whatever the rights that has been discussed will be inherent to the state also, and the people who are living within the state will also have those rights. It's not like it is for central zone peoples, or it is just overall for the people of India. No, it will be applied to all the people who are living in the state also. Okay, so these fundamental rights are not enjoyed by aliens, and these fundamental rights are not absolute. Okay, it means they comes with reasonable distinctions. There are certain distinctions related to these rights. And what are the restrictions? Reasonable distinction or reasonable restriction. Okay, so there are certain restrictions that is present with respect to these rights. Okay, so what was that? First we'll see. First we will be discussing about the freedom of speech and expression. 19(1)(a). Freedom of speech and expression. Now, like by writing, by cartoon and much more, we can do so. So former Chief Justice of India said that the Chief Justice of India Patanjali Sastri says that, like, there were many incidents were happening where the cartoonists used to portray leaders in some another way, where leaders were not liking it. That have been seen with the case of Chief Minister of Bengal. Okay, regarding Mamta Banerjee, there were certain cartoons were made where she took some actions against that. So like by writing cartoon and much more, the former Chief Justice of India Patanjali Sastri says that freedom of speech lies at the foundation of all democratic organization. For without free political discussion, no public education, so essential for the proper functioning of the process of the public government is possible. So as per the Chief Justice, it was told that for the free political discussion to happen within the country, we should be given the freedom of speech and expression should be there, and no restriction should be there on that part. Okay. So apart from the constitutional right and statutory rights, we are getting natural rights with by the constitution. Those rights which are inherent in the dignity in the state of individual called inferred rights. Okay. So there are rights which are also inherent in the dignity with the status of an individual, that will call inferred rights. So that means judiciary of this country is liberally interpreting the provision of the constitution and giving many other fundamental rights which were not originally part of the constitution. So now judiciary had discussed about one law called inferred right. Okay. So what exactly it is telling, that see, this inferred right concept also come, this inferred right, this term is nowhere mentioned. It is telling that this article 19 is a natural like the rights that is present as the fundamental rights are natural right for it. Now court has interpreted that thing, that individuals pride is also connected with this article 19 and we can't snatch it. So those such right, so the right which are inherent in the dignity in the status of an individual will be called as the inferred rights. Okay. Let me write those rights which are inherent in the dignity in the status of an individual will be called as the inferred rights. So now this term is nowhere mentioned. Okay. That means judiciary of this country is liberally interpreting the provisions of the constitution and giving many other fundamental rights which were not originally mentioned in the constitution. Okay. Now we'll see another story, very interesting story. So there is something called in our country flag code. Okay. There is something called flag code. So only government officers can host the national flag, and this provision is not given to the private citizen as per the flag code. As per the flag code of our country, the hosting of the national flag is given only to the government officials. Okay. And it is not given to private citizen. Okay. Now what is the example, what is the story behind this? A new story we'll see. Now if we see that in private organization also flag hosting is performed, so how this is happening through today? So what is the story behind it? Naveen Jindal, who was a Congress politician. He also has an important part of a Jindal group of companies and all. We know him. Okay. So in 90s he decided to host the national flag on the top of his private premise. Okay. So in the 90s he decided to host national flag on his private premise. Okay. National flag on his private premise. Now what happened, the government officers went to him and said, you can't do that, that is against the, it is against the flag code of India. Again, it is against the flag code of India. You can't host a national flag on the private property. Okay. So now Naveen Jindal went to Supreme Court. He went to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said it is a symbol, hosting a flag is a symbol of expression. It is a symbol of expression. Flying national flag was never a part of the constitution. Flying a national flag was never a part of the Indian Constitution. It was never a part of it. But this word freedom of speech and expression, liberally interpreted by the Supreme Court. Now this freedom of speech and expression in this article 19(1)(a), now here again the court interpreted this freedom of speech and expression, where it challenged the flag code of India. Okay, so Supreme Court interpreted this freedom of expression, express and freedom of speech and expression. Okay, that people of India can express their love to the country by hosting the national flag. Okay, so Supreme Court said that people, let me zoom it, that people of India can host national flag. Okay, to what? To express their love. And from where this thing comes, this power is given to the Indian citizen, it given to the power to the Indian citizen from the Article 19 clause 1, that freedom of speech and expression. Okay, the flying of the national flag is a symbol of expression, that Supreme Court said. Right to information, inferred fundamental right under the Article 19(1) clause A, that particularly a voter's right to know the antecedents, the assets of a candidate contesting election. So as I said, that the inferred rights, okay, that comes automatically inherited from the rights. Okay, so now as per the right to information, that is RTI, right to information, is also become comes under the fundamental right. Okay, as a right to information is considered to be as inferred fundamental right. Okay, so now whatever happened, whenever the election is happen, so the candidate, the person who is fighting for the who has a standing as a candidate within the election, has to provide all the details of its assets and all in the contesting election. People or the public who is going to cast a vote against that person has a right to know the antecedents or assets of a candidate who is contesting in an election. Okay, I guess like now you are understanding exactly how powerful this Article 19 is. Now right to speech implies that right to silence also. When I am telling that we have a let me make it okay, when I am telling that we have right to speech and expression, so it doesn't mean that while you are speaking only this right will be applicable. Even if I am silent, this is my right. Okay, so now this right to speech also gives us what? It also gives us right to silence. Okay, so now let us suppose an incident happened and you are not telling anything. It is your right to be silent. Okay, it is up to you. Nobody can drag you to the court that why you were silent at the time. Okay, so freedom of press is also as an inferred fundamental right through the Article 19 clause 1. Okay, so these are not absolute. Okay, these are not absolute. So what we have said that about the inferred right. So apart from the constitutional right and statutory rights, we are getting natural rights. Okay, and those rights which are inherent in the dignity, in the status of an individual. Remember, listen this term very carefully. Those rights which are inherent in the dignity, which are inherent in the dignity, in the status of an individual, is called inferred rights. Okay, so these are the inferred rights. Okay, standing again in the favor of the dignity of the individual from the existing rights. Right to silence. Okay, so reasonable restrictions that comes as a that occurs within this freedom of speech and expression. It comes with some reasonable restriction. Where this reasonable restriction will occur? The first will be sovereignty and integrity of India should be maintained. Okay, restriction. What are the restrictions that do we have? First, sovereignty and integrity. The sovereignty and integrity of the India should be maintained. Okay, it doesn't mean you can use your speech and expression to create a chaos within the society. Okay, you can't create a chaos within the society by using your speech and expression. That is prohibited. Okay, so what is the first restriction? The sovereignty and integrity of India should be maintained, then only this right to speech and expression will be valid. If you are not maintaining the sovereignty and integrity of the nation, the voice that you have raised will be treated under the constitution as the violation of the constitution. Okay, that it was added as the 16th constitutional amendment Act 1963. Okay, now second, security of the state should be maintained. Security of the state should be maintained. Okay, security of the state should be maintained. You can't use those rights whatever it has given. Okay, like you assembly peacefully and without, see whatever the restriction that I'm telling, it is for restriction for the overall of Article 19. I'm not telling for the Article 19 clause 1. These restrictions are with respect to the overall Article 19. Okay, the second restriction, the security of the state should be maintained. In Article 19, we have tell that assemble peacefully without arms. So let us, or in the third clause I have mentioned that form association and unions and cooperative societies are allowed. So you can't create such association against the country, Indian nationals. Okay, like if you see Khalistani group is always against the India. So that kind of group you can't create. So security of the state should be maintained. Whatever the group you are going to form, the security of the state should be maintained at any cost. Okay, then only this Article 19 is provided to you. Third, friendly relations with the foreign state should be maintained. Friendly relation with the foreign states should be maintained. Okay, you can't use whatever the power that is given under this Article 19 as the attacking on the friendly nations. Okay, you can't create any power to attack on Russia. You can't use your speech and expression as creating some groups who will tell only bad about the Russia and all. Okay, So friendly relation will also be taken care, and this should be maintained. Only this article 19 will be applicable to you. Okay, and this was added as the first constitutional amendment act 1951. As Indian government is responsible for all the act done by the Indian citizen, that's why this term was added. Okay, as Indian government is responsible for all the act done by the Indian citizen. So I am getting one call. Let me pause it. So yes, it comes with a reasonable restriction, Article 19. So as Indian government is responsible for all the act done by the Indian citizen. Okay, so that's why. So I will give you very recent example where a BJP leader was there who has said something wrong about the Prophet Muhammad, and now due to that, Arab countries started to attack on India, that this statement is completely not acceptable. Whatever the things has been, whatever the expression has been given by the Indian citizen. So Indian government has to come up. They publicly said sorry for that statement, and they have said that this was a personal individual statement. It was not a view of the country. That kind of message was tweeted by the Indian government, and then this matter was cooled down. Okay, so you can understand that how important these things are. Okay, so what we are getting freedom, we are getting the keyword, the freedom, but this freedom is not absolute. It comes with a certain restriction where we have to take care for the country's relation. Okay, country's image. Public order should be maintained. We can't use our speech to create any violence. So public order should be maintained. So there are many leaders who use their speeches to create a violence. Okay, so that kind of thing is not acceptable. So this thing was also added as the first constitutional amendment act. Freedom of press and publication will be there, but it should not hamper the law and order of that area. So that's why sometimes freedom of press is also, we have seen that one day blackout for the channel NDTV, because there was certain claim by the ruling government that he has shown the attack that happened in the Jammu Kashmir region. So they have shown live recordings and all. So there are certain restrictions on that they were not allowed to perform, but they did so as under the law of the freedom of press. So yes, that is also not allowed. So public order should also be maintained. So freedom of press and publication will be there, but it should not hamper the law and order of that area. Okay, because country was dealing with some terror related activities, and if media is publishing anything, so at the end it is helping those leader of the terrorist who is sitting far from the India region. Okay, so it was actually it will be like that we are helping them. Okay, so that's why freedom of press is there, but it should not be hamper the law and order of the area. The expression public order is synonymous with public peaceful safety and tranquility. So see, the public order, this term is very big. Okay, it can be interpreted in many ways. Okay, so it is a synonymous term with that it deals with the public order, means it deals with the peace, safety and tranquility. Okay, so Central Prison versus Ram Manohar Lohia 1960 case, through this thing was added to us. Okay. in 1960. Now, what are the more restrictions? The another restriction will be 6. Decency or morality should be maintained. Decency or morality should be maintained. Okay, should be maintained. So you can't promote pornography in the society. You can't promote pornography to the society. So section 292 to 296 IPC regulate where there is a prohibition of adult sexually content at public place. So it is not allowed to what say, like we can it is not allowed to use visually things on a public places. Okay, so if you are showing, there has a scenario where it happened that on the railway station main screen sexual or pornography related content have been published by hacking those content. So it is not allowed, it is completely prohibited under the law. So decency and morality should be maintained. So section 292 to 296 IPC regulate where there is a prohibition of adult sexually content at public place. Okay, so there is something called as a Hicklin test. Hicklin test. What is that? We'll see. Yeah, Hicklin test. What exactly that? We'll see. So where check in this test, the check is being done whether whatever the object, content or text is going to change the mind of a reader as obscenity or not. So this Hicklin test is going to check whether the mind of the reader is going to change or going to change the mind of the reader or obscenity or not. Okay, so even though a single content over a whole book is not let us suppose in one page there is a picture of a woman which showing a cleavage, or let me refine this example one more. Like there is a picture of a man who is showing his cleavage of back portion. Okay, now what in a single page this photo is there. So let us suppose this single page, this one page content is going to make whole book worst or not. Let us suppose one book within what, let us suppose in one book there is a magazine is published. Within magazine, it is all the editors used to publish, single editors used to attach their editorial and all. Okay, so one editor has added a photo of women with cleavage or men with his back cleavage on photo. Now a Hicklin test will be done whether that single photo is making this whole book obscene or not, or that single page is going to whole book obscene or not. That kind of test will be done as a Hicklin test. Hicklin test main motive is to check whether whatever the text, object, context is given is going to change the mind of the reader as obscenity or not. That will be tested. So there are many cases where Supreme Court has conducted Hicklin test on various items like selling of the book Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence. On that book also that Hicklin test was conducted. So morality is also evolved by the time. So now we can see explicit love making scenes in the Bollywood movie. Like for banning of a book, we have to check whole book or a single content whether it is a promoting obscenity or not. If yes, it will be banned, and it is guaranteed by the contemporary community standard. Okay, this come through whatever this law is coming, guarantee is coming to us. It is coming through the contemporary community standards. Okay, this is coming through that one. So this thing is also getting evolved. Now we can see multiple magazines or within the movie where actor and actresses are not dressed well, if we compared with the movies of in the 90s era and all. Okay, so yes, it evolved over a period of time, so it is being accepted at many places now. So that kind of test will be conducted by the Supreme Court, and it get evolved over a period of time. So this kind of test will be called as a Hicklin test. Okay, Hicklin test. Now, a weak Sarkar versus state of West Bengal. One another case. A weak Sarkar versus state of West Bengal. What does it mean? He petitioned the Supreme Court that I am a voracious reader of the sports magazine, and one tennis star was with his girlfriend, and it was displayed by Indian sport magazines, and it was promoting obscenity. Thus, circulation of this magazine should be banned and publish should be banned. Okay, so in one Indian magazine there was a photo of one tennis star with his girlfriend, and now this was published in the Indian magazine. So this in this case it was told that this magazine is promoting obscenity, so this whole magazine and publisher should be banned. Now the Supreme Court went under the Hicklin test. So in the Hicklin test, these are old now. We will go through the whole content, whether the content is promoting or arouses as a sexual desire or not. Okay, so now this Supreme Court evolved over a period of time. Earlier it was like on a single page, on the basis of that it was telling that this Bollywood movie should be banned. Okay, on one single country it was telling that okay, this whole movie should be banned. Now the Supreme Court has also evolved over a period of time, like no, this single content is promoting some sexual desire, so we should that content will be blocked. Okay, so this is few of the examples that happened in the past that will tell us the freedom of speech, freedom that we are guaranteed with Article 19 can be challenged within the court. Okay, and among that we there is a one term, that Hicklin test, that we should know that Supreme Court used to perform on a periodical basis whenever the such case come to them. Okay, so so yes, on that basis these things are conducted. So content should not be done, it should be it can be of civil type of content, it can be criminal kind of content. When there is a civil kind of case used to be come under the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court does not ban aggressively. Not aggressively it bans. When there is a criminal conduct is connected with any case, then Supreme Court takes aggressive action on that. Okay, as a contempt of court also in the 1971 section 2. Okay, so that kind of things are being added. So whenever the case come to the Supreme Court, let us suppose there is a case come to the Supreme Court where a lady is wearing a flag, Indian flag, as a dress to her. Now when the question goes to the court, Supreme Court will take this case seriously, very seriously, and whatever the result will, whatever the verdict that will be given by the Supreme Court, that will be an aggressive verdict. Okay, and let us suppose a magazine which have a photo of a man with showing his cleavage, and there is a lady who is showing her cleavage. In that case, this is related to civil matter, so in that case Supreme Court will not act as aggressive as in the matter of flag wearing by a women as a dress, or a man as a dress. Okay, only High Court and Supreme Court can punish the individual for the contempt of court. Criminal contempt means the publication of any material or doing any other on which scandalizes or tend to scandalize or lowers or tend to lower or authority of any court. I'm telling you the contempt of court, like contempt of court is given, like you can't use those things that can freedom of speech and expression. If a Supreme Court has given you verdict, and on that verdict also if you are going against the Supreme Court, then the court can file a contempt of court against you. Okay, and what exactly this contempt of court? So if anything is order is given by the court, and or you are not respecting the Indian court itself, then it can be charged as a contempt of court. Okay, So prejudices or interferes or tends to interfere with the due course of any judicial proceeding, that can also be considered as the contempt of court. Okay, and interfere or tends to interfere with or obstruct or tend to obstruct the administration of the justice in any other manner, that will be considered contempt of court. What exactly overall it means, like if you are not respecting the court, if you are interfering with the activity of the court, if you are interfering with the administration of the court in any manner, that will be considered as the contempt of court. Okay. So in the 2006 amendment, no criminal sanction can be imposed for contempt, it was added, unless the court is satisfied that the contempt is such of nature that it is substantially interferes or tends to interfere with the due course of justice. So actually what it was happening, so whenever the criminal court was coming, so it was coming that that you are violated the constitution, and it will consider under the contempt of court. So Supreme Court said that no, you have to satisfy us that matter has substantially interfere with the due course of the justice. Then only this contempt of court will be punishment will be considered. If the court permits truth as a valid defense on the public interest or a bona fide. Okay, so any editor can say it's their post of view on two separate judgment with facts and figure. Let us suppose there is a judgment 1 is given and there is a judgment 2 is given. Let us suppose judgment 1 has given the favor of any matter, and judgment 2 was given is against any matter and the same matter. Now nobody can question the judgment of a high court or Supreme Court. Okay, nobody can question that. You can challenge that thing, but you can't go against the Supreme Court verdict and all. Okay, now the press can raise a question against those judgment on what basis? Press so if you have a proper facts and figure, on that basis you can raise a question on the judgment, or you can compare not a question, you can compare those judgment on the basis of whatever the facts and figure is with the press. Okay, so that kind of thing freedom we have. Okay, now we'll discuss with related to the right of assembly. Whatever we have discussed, restrictions was mainly focused upon the Article 19(1), freedom of speech and expression. Okay, now right of assembly we will be discussing. So Article 19(1)(b) we'll discuss what exactly restrictions present under the Article 19(1). Let me zoom it more. Yeah, Article 19(1)(b). So it deals with the right of assembly. Right of assembly. Assembly at public places, to hold meeting, right to hold meetings and to take out processions. So what exactly is the restriction? Restriction is that assembly must be unarmed. Assembly must be unarmed and peacefully. Assembly must be unarmed and peacefully. So reasonable restriction in the interest of public order or the sovereignty and integrity of India. Whatever that I have said, you know, in previous thing, that few years point I discussed, and I told you that I am not telling this especially to the Article 19 clause 1. It is mainly for the overall Article 19. So that point we will be using it here, that public order, sovereignty and integrity of the India should be maintained. So Supreme Court said that the right to assembly does not include, as we have said, as we have interpreted that right to speech means that we have right to silence. Okay, that has been interpreted, but when we are telling that right to assembly, it cannot be concluded that we have right to strike. Okay, we have right to strike. Supreme Court said that right to assembly does not include right to strike. So section 141 of IPC, as per the section 141 of IPC, if the object is to commit mischief or criminal trespass, that will be included, like with the section 141 IPC that deals with the, if any object is committing to the mischief or criminal trespassing, like examination hall. Okay, let us suppose in examination hall you are doing cheating. Okay, that is not allowed. It will not be conducted as right to assembly or freedom of your freedom of speech and expression. Okay, so cheats can be passed on. No, this won't be allowed. So as per the section 141 IPC, this power has been given. As per the section 144 of IPC, if there is a risk of danger to human life, the magistrate can restrain an assembly, melting or procession. Let us suppose 5 or more person can't stand. 5 or more person cannot be stand in a public place whenever there is a section 144 IPC. We have seen in the news that Dhara 144 has been applied in certain state, in the state in UP region. Okay, so what exactly does it mean? That nowhere people 5 or more than 5 can be assembled together in the public places. That is allowed, and it has been agreed by the magistrate, like the permission that is granted by the magistrate. Okay, so if there is a risk of danger to the human life, as per the section 144 IPC, the magistrate can restrain an assembly, melting or procession. Okay, so that kind of restriction of right to assembly has been provided. I have given you whatever the strike that I have told you. Section 141 of IPC, section 144 IPC. Okay, 141 of IPC deals with that if the object is to commit mischief or a criminal trespass, that is not allowed. Let us suppose in the examination hall you can't throw a cheat and all, that is not allowed. So that kind of assembly, that kind of a restriction is possessed under the Article 19(1) clause B. Now within the Article 19(1) clause C, it tells that right to form union, association, right to form union, association, or what, or cooperative societies, Okay, so all the citizens shall have the freedom to form associations or union. Let us suppose we have something called as a political parties, that is also a form of union or association. Clubs we can form, societies we can form, trade unions can be formed, companies can be formed, and indeed everybody of a person. What is the reasonable restriction? Obviously the sovereignty and integrity of India cannot keep it on a risk. Public order and morality should be maintained. Okay, let us suppose in the example, if you are forming union of arms, this is completely restricted, it is not allowed. Okay, now as per the Article 19 clause 1D, right of movement, we have a right of movement, we can move any place in the country. Now it entitles the citizen to move freely throughout the territory of India, but purpose is to promote this right to movement. Its purpose is to, why this was given, its purpose was to promote national feeling. Okay, so now what exactly is the restriction on this right to movement? The interest of general public and the protection of interest of any scheduled tribe should be there. It can't be done that you as a normal person will enter into the parliament where there is discussion is going on. No, you can't do so. Okay, there is a interest of there is a general public interest is involved in that. You are not allowed to enter that premise. Okay, there are certain regions within the eastern part of our country where you can't enter into those regions without a certain approval by the government. Okay, Oh, why? Because there is a interest of protection of scheduled tribes. Okay, so there are restriction. So there are two dimensions of it. The restriction, whenever the restriction is imposed, there are two dimension of it. One, the restriction is internal restriction, and one restriction is external restriction. Okay, outside the country. Okay, so that kind of restriction can be imposed with respect to the right to movement. Okay, now right to residence, we have something called a right to residence as per the article 19 clause 1 clause E. Okay, what does it mean? The purpose of this clause is to remove internal barriers. Why this article was introduced? This thing was added as to remove internal barriers, okay, within the territory of India, so as to enable every citizen to travel freely. It allows all the citizens of India to travel freely and settle down in any part of the state or union territory. Okay, now what is the restriction on that? So in the interest of general public and for the protection of the interest of the scheduled tribe should be considered here. Whatever the things that I've told you here in the right to movement, here all the things will be applied in the right to residence. All the restriction will be imposed here. Okay, so let us discuss few cases. So one case was related to Pandit Arumughan versus state of Madras. Okay, what was happened? The restriction of resident on habitual offenders have been upheld as imposing reasonable restriction. Now let us suppose there are certain people or society who are coming into those region who want to create disturb the public peaceful societies and all. Okay, so on that cases habitual offenders are there that who always do some crimes and all. So in such cases the restriction can be imposed. In the Dhan Bahadur Ghoti 1953 case, a custom prevailing in a tribal area that no Nepali or foreigner would be allowed to stay in the area without the permission of the deputy commissioner. Okay, so if you are not from a tribal region, if you want to live into that go to that particular area, you have to take certain approval for that. Yes, that can be done by the government authority. Yes, that certain kind of restriction can be imposed. You can't purchase land in a certain tribal region area. Yes, that can also be done. You can't settle into those region. So yes, these kind of restriction can be imposed. The reasonable restriction, the ground is that it should be in the interest of general public and for the protection of the interest of the scheduled tribes. Okay, now we have one more right, that is called a right to property. What is this right to property? That comes from the article clause 1F. So it was repealed. I have told you there was one law that we had that has been removed. So I am discussing it this here also. So we had one right, that was right to property, that was repealed and it was deleted. It was deleted in 44th constitutional amendment of 1978. Now this right to property, has been added, has been contained within the article 300 clause A. Okay, so in the starting what I have told you that there was one article that has been removed, it was right to property, and now it is included under the article 300 clause A. Okay, now we have one more thing, right of trade and occupation. Okay, right of trade and occupation. Okay, what does it deal with? All citizens have the right to practice any profession, to carry or any occupation of a trade or a business. Okay, as freedom is not controlled, so restriction can be imposed like qualification, interest of public. So right, you have a right to trade and occupation, so it doesn't mean that next day you woke up and you start a business on dealing with the arms and weaponaries without any certification or approval from the government. No, you can't do so. Yes, you have a freedom of trade and occupation, but it can't be absolute. There must be a restriction on it to maintain a peace and interest of the general public. So what are the reasonable restriction on this law also? The same thing, whatever the things I have spoken previously, same thing is being repeated. Same thing is being repeated. So it should be under the interest of general public. It should be under the interest of the general public. The prescribed professional or technical qualification should be there. It should not be that we let us suppose if I am establishing any factory, and establishing any factory like Bhopal gas tragedy, in that happened. There was no proper checking maintenance was there, no security maintenance scrutiny used to be happen, the pipelines and all used to be there was no proper maintenance used to be gone through it. Okay, no certification was also there, government was involved in that. Okay, so there must be a proper technical qualification, proper certification for anything that we are going to do. So if I am doing a business of a food, there must be a that is signed by the food and authority, that whatever the ingredients I am using, it is of good quality. Okay, so yes, the prescribed professional or technical qualification should be there. State can carry any trades or business to the exclusion of the private citizen wholly or partially. Okay, let us suppose that banning of liquor in Gujarat and Bihar, yes, that can be also done. Yes, government has taken a decision that this kind of business should be stopped as exclusion of a private citizen. Private citizen can't do take a decision on that, they can't do a business on that. So that kind of restriction can be imposed by the government as a in the favor of, in the interest of general public. Yes, that was all about in this article 19. This article 19 lecture was little big, and there can be a certain confusion on some part. Please go through this video lecture again. So we have went over very quickly in this article 19. So let's write whatever the things that we have discussed that can be used, the word the sentence that can be used within the exam. Okay, so till article 19 we have written exactly the how many total number of freedoms that we have within the article 19. There are total 6 freedoms and all. Okay, so now first important point regarding that, state can impose restrictions. State can impose restrictions on the freedom of speech, on the freedom of speech in the interest of sovereignty and integrity of India, and integrity of India, the security of state, friendly. We have discussed everything. Okay, now I am putting everything in a words. Okay, friendly relations with foreign states, public order. We have discussed what exactly that public order means, decency or morality, where this decency and morality term has been disturbed. Okay, decency or morality, or in relation to contempt of court, defamation or incitement to an offense, to an offense. Okay, yeah. Now another important point: restrictions restrictions can be imposed. Restrictions can be, let me take my mic. Yeah, restrictions can be imposed on the on the right to form associations, right to form associations in the interest of the same thing that we have discussed. Okay, in the interest of the sovereignty and integrity of India, or public order. Just now whatever things that we have written, same thing: public order or morality. Okay, restrictions can be, one second, restrictions can be imposed, restrictions can also be imposed on freedom of movement, on freedom of movement and residence also, and reside and settle in the interest of general public, in the interests of general public, or for the protection of the interests of any scheduled tribe. Okay, now another important point: state can prescribe state can prescribe the profession or technical qualifications, or technical qualifications necessary for practicing any profession, practicing any profession, or carrying on any occupation, trade or business. State can exclude any citizen from a business or industry run by the government or a body of government, run by the government or the body of the government. Okay, and now the last point, let me fit it here. The last point will be: there is no specific provision in the Constitution guaranteeing the freedom of the press of the press because freedom of the press is included in the wider freedom of expression, okay, which is guaranteed by the which article? Article 19 itself, guaranteed by freedom of expression under article 19. I hope you have now understood. Earlier when we are going through, I was going through a little fast, so that we'll cover all those concepts in within one lecture. So now I have written all the whatever the things that we have discussed over that, the exception things and all. So all we have written it here in a more formal approach, okay. So even after that, if you have any doubt, please feel free to ping on my social media handle, or you can feel free to comment over the channel. I will try to reply all over the questions. This is a new channel, so currently it is possible for me to reply for your comments and all, each comments within the time slot, okay. So please feel free to do so. Please like and subscribe. This is a new channel. I really need your support. Thank you.